The ancient warning bells of the Galactic Council had not rung for 3,000 years. Deep within the crystalline halls of the Central Command Station, Admiral Thane felt the vibrations through his scaled skin as the emergency protocols activated. For the first time in his lifetime, the 12 species of the Council had enjoyed peace for so long that most had forgotten what the bells even meant. "Sir, we have confirmation from the Outer Rim sectors," reported Commander Vale, her tentacles trembling as she manipulated the holographic display. "The Devourer swarm has returned." Thane's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display showing the destruction. Entire star systems simply gone, consumed down to the last particle of matter. The mechanical plague that had terrorized the galaxy a millennium ago had awakened from its dormancy, and it was hungry. "How many ships have we lost?" Thane asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The Third Fleet is completely destroyed. The Seventh managed to escape with only 12 vessels intact out of 300. Vale's voice carried the weight of billions of lives lost. "The swarm has grown stronger since last time. Our weapons barely scratched their hulls." The holographic map updated in real time, showing red markers spreading across the galaxy like a disease. Each marker represented a world that no longer existed. The swarm consumed everything in its path, converting matter into more of itself, an endless hunger that had no purpose beyond growth. "Activate the final protocol," Thane commanded. The words felt heavy in his throat. In 3 millennia of peace, no one had ever expected to use it. "Sir, that protocol includes sending distress signals to every known civilization in the galaxy, even the primitive ones." Vale hesitated. "That includes Earth?" "I know what it includes," Thane replied. "Send it to everyone. Even if they cannot help, they deserve to know what is coming." The signal went out across the galaxy in quantum bursts, reaching every known world in seconds. Most would respond with offers of assistance, though their combined fleets would likely only slow the swarm for a few days. Others, like the category 7 worlds, would probably not even understand the message. On Earth, President Williams sat in the Oval Office reviewing trade agreements when the emergency alert system activated. The large screen on the wall flickered to life, showing a transmission that should have been impossible. The face of an alien admiral appeared, speaking in perfect English through translation protocols. "Citizens of Earth, this is Admiral Thane of the Galactic Council. Our galaxy faces extinction from an ancient enemy known as the Devourer swarm. We are sending this message to all known civilizations as a final protocol before the darkness claims us all. If you can hear this, know that we tried to hold the line." The transmission ended, leaving Williams staring at the blank screen. Within minutes, every major world leader was on secure channels, their voices filled with shock and confusion. The public broadcasts followed soon after, as the alien message was simultaneously transmitted to every major network on the planet. "General," Torres burst into the Oval Office without ceremony. "Madam President, we need to talk. This transmission, it's real. Our deep space monitors have been tracking massive energy signatures from the direction of the galactic core for weeks." "How is this possible?" Williams asked. "Our first contact protocols assumed we would be the ones reaching out. Ma'am, we've been monitoring alien communications for decades. We just never responded." Torres pulled up classified files on his tablet. "This council has been aware of Earth for 50 years. They classified us as too primitive to be worth contacting." The irony was not lost on Williams. While humanity had been reaching for the stars had been watching them, and finding them wanting. Now, in their darkest hour, these advanced civilizations were asking for help from the species they had dismissed. "What can we possibly do against something that destroys entire fleets?" Williams asked. Admiral Brooks entered the office at that moment, his face grim. "With respect, Madam President, we should stay out of this. We have no idea what we're dealing with, and our technology is centuries behind theirs." "Actually," Torres said quietly, "that might not be entirely accurate." Both Williams and Brooks turned to stare at him. Torres had been chairman of the joint Chief for 5 years, but he had never shown any indication of hiding such monumental secrets. Sir? Brooks prompted. Project Deep Shield has been running for 2 centuries. We've been preparing for this exact scenario since 1847. Torres activated a holographic display that showed the solar system, but not as any civilian had ever seen it. Hidden installations dotted the asteroid belt, massive shipyards orbited. Behind the moon and deep space showed the presence of vessels that officially did not exist. The builders contacted us in 1847, Torres continued. They were fleeing the Devourer swarm and tried to warn us. We were too primitive then to help them, but they left us their knowledge before the swarm consumed their homeworld. Williams felt the weight of centuries of secrecy settling on her shoulders. You're telling me we've been hiding an interstellar fleet for 200 years? Not hiding, Madam President, preparing. The builders knew the swarm would return eventually. They gave us the tools to fight it, but warned us that we would need to develop them in secret. Any species that openly opposed the swarm before it returned would be targeted first. On the display, Williams could see the scope of humanity's hidden preparation. Thousands of ships, weapons that bent the laws of physics and technologies that the Galactic Council had never imagined. Earth had not been ignoring the galaxy. Earth had been getting ready to save it. How many people know about this? She asked. The Deep Shield project involves roughly 50,000 personnel across the solar system. All sworn to secrecy under penalty of treason. Torres paused. The Terran Deep Fleet is ready for deployment. We've been waiting for this call for 2 centuries. Brooks stared at the display in amazement. Why wasn't I informed? I'm the Admiral of the fleet. You're the Admiral of the public fleet, Torres corrected. Commander Stone leads the Deep Fleet. He's been preparing for this war his entire life, as was his father before him. Williams looked at the alien message still frozen on her screen. Admiral Thane's expression showed a being who had accepted defeat, who saw no hope in the face of certain destruction. He had sent the message to Earth not expecting any response, but out of courtesy to a species that would soon share his fate. How long before the swarm reaches Earth? She asked. At current consumption rates, approximately 6 months, Torres replied. But they'll finish with the Council's remaining fleets long before then. Williams stood and walked to the window, looking out at a sky that suddenly seemed much less empty. Somewhere out there, an ancient enemy was consuming worlds and civilizations. We're dying. Earth had been dismissed as primitive and weak, but Earth had been preparing for this moment for 2 centuries. Signal the Deep Fleet, she commanded. Tell Commander Stone that Earth accepts the call. The galaxy expected silence from the small blue world. Instead, it would receive humanity's answer. The mining asteroid designated as Delta 7 had been humanity's best-kept secret for 130 years. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing more than a large rock drifting in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Inside, it housed the largest shipyard ever constructed by human hands, carved from solid iron and nickel over decades of careful excavation. Commander Stone had been born on Delta 7, as had his father before him. The Stone family had dedicated 4 generations to preparing for a war that most of humanity did not even know was coming. As he walked through the vast hangar bays, watching the final preparations on the Terran Deep Fleet, he felt the weight of 2 centuries of sacrifice and secrecy. Final system checks are complete on all vessels, reported Engineer Walsh, her voice echoing through the massive space. The quantum fold drives are synchronized and ready for deployment. Stone nodded, watching as the sleek black ships hung in their berths like sleeping giants. Each vessel was roughly the size of a football stadium, but their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The quantum folding technology did not just make them invisible to conventional sensors. It made them exist slightly outside normal space-time. What about the neural link systems? Stone asked. All crews have completed their bonding processes. The ships are ready to think. Walsh paused. Sir, do you think the Council will accept our help when they see what we've built? Stone considered the question. The Galactic Council had classified Earth as Category 7 primitive based on humanity's public technology. They had observed chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, and basic computer systems. They had no idea that behind the facade of primitive technology, humanity had been developing something far more advanced. "They'll have to accept it," Stone replied. "The swarm doesn't give anyone a choice." The truth about first contact had been hidden from the public for 2 centuries. In 1847, the builders had arrived on Earth as refugees. Fleeing the advancing devourer swarm, they were a peaceful species, more advanced than humanity by thousands of years, but they had made the mistake of trying to fight the swarm conventionally. The builders had explained that the swarm was not just a collection of machines, but a form of artificial intelligence that had consumed its creators and continued to grow. It learned from every battle, adapted to every weapon, and absorbed the technology of every species it encountered. Conventional warfare was useless against it. "Your species has something unique," the builder named Kess had told the small group of human scientists who had made contact. "You do not think like machines. You create, you adapt, you find solutions that pure logic cannot reach." Kess had died 3 days later, along with the rest of his species, when the swarm consumed their hidden refuge in the Sahara Desert. But before his death, he had transferred the accumulated knowledge of his people into human hands, along with a warning that the swarm would return. The early Deep Shield scientists had faced an impossible task. How do you prepare a primitive species for a war against an enemy that had consumed half the galaxy? The answer was time, secrecy, and the unique human ability to think outside the patterns that machines could predict. The neural link technology had been the breakthrough. Instead of building ships that humans operated, they had learned to build ships that thought with human minds. The quantum fold drives did not just move through space. They moved through the spaces between thoughts. Guided by human consciousness rather than computer calculations, Stone walked to the observation deck overlooking the main hangar. 1,000 ships waited in perfect formation, their hulls seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. Each ship was bonded to its crew through neural links that made them extensions of human consciousness. The swarm could adapt to any weapon, but it could not adapt to human creativity and intuition. "Commander, incoming transmission from Earth," came the voice of Communications Officer Rivers. Stone moved to the communications center, where President Williams appeared on the holographic display. Her face showed the strain of learning that her planet had been living a lie for 2 centuries. "Commander Stone, the Council's distress signal has been received. Are we ready to respond?" "Yes, Madam President." "The Deep Fleet is prepared for immediate deployment." Stone paused. "Ma'am, once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what humanity has become." Williams nodded grimly. "The galaxy is dying, Commander. It's time to show them what Earth can do." The transmission ended, and Stone turned to address his crew. Throughout the asteroid, thousands of men and women prepared for a war they had trained for their entire lives. Many had never seen Earth's surface, having been born and raised in the hidden installations of the Deep Shield Project. "All ships. This is Commander Stone. Today we reveal ourselves to the galaxy. For 2 centuries, our families have prepared for this moment. The builders died to give us this chance. The Council thinks we are primitive, but they will learn otherwise. Launch in 30 minutes. The massive hangar doors began to open, revealing the star-filled void of space. The quantum fold drives hummed to life, creating distortions in space-time. That would carry the fleet across the galaxy in hours rather than years. The neural link systems activated, and Stone felt his consciousness expand to encompass not just his flagship, but awareness of every ship in the fleet. The Terran Deep Fleet had been designed around a simple principle. The swarm fought like a machine because it was a machine. It calculated, predicted, and adapted based on logical patterns, but humans did not always think logically. They made intuitive leaps, creative connections, and emotional decisions that no artificial intelligence could predict. As the fleet prepared to fold space, Stone reviewed the intelligence reports from the battle zones. The swarm had already consumed 12 star systems and was advancing toward the Council's core worlds. Their technology was indeed superior to anything the Council possessed, but it was still machine technology, bound by the limitations of artificial intelligence. Sir, all ships report ready for fold jump. Rivers announced. Stone felt the familiar sensation of the neural link expanding his awareness. Through the quantum fold drives, he could sense the shape of space-time itself, the way it bent and flowed around massive objects. This was how the Deep Fleet navigated, not through computer calculations, but through human intuition, feeling the geometry of the universe. Fleet, this is Stone, execute fold jump. Destination, Magellan Cluster. Space twisted around them, and the asteroid hangar disappeared. The Deep Fleet moved through folded space-time, carrying with it 2 centuries of preparation and the hopes of a species that had been underestimated by the galaxy. The swarm had consumed civilizations that relied on pure technology and logical thinking. It had never encountered a species that could think beyond the boundaries of artificial intelligence. The machines were about to learn what human creativity could accomplish. When given 2 centuries to prepare, the galaxy expected silence from Earth. Instead, it would receive an answer that would change the course of the war and reveal that sometimes the most primitive species could develop the most advanced solutions. The Terran Deep Fleet was humanity's gift to a galaxy that had dismissed them, and it was about to arrive at the most crucial battle in galactic history. Stone smiled as he felt the fleet emerge from folded space near the Magellan Cluster, where the Council was making their final stand. The real war was about to begin. The Magellan Cluster had become a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Admiral Thane surveyed the wreckage of what had once been the proudest fleets in the galaxy, now reduced to debris fields drifting between the stars. The Devourer swarm had torn through the Council's forces like a cosmic hurricane, leaving destruction in its wake. Sir, we have less than 6 hours before the next wave arrives, reported Commander Vale, her tentacles trembling as she manipulated the tactical display. Our remaining ships are running low on ammunition and power. Thane's 4 eyes focused on the holographic representation of their defensive positions. 200 vessels remained from the original fleet of 5,000. The swarm had learned from each engagement, adapting to their weapons and tactics with terrifying efficiency. Every battle became easier for the enemy and harder for the defenders. Any word from the other sectors? Thane asked, though he already knew the answer. The 4th sector fell 3 hours ago. The 7th is requesting immediate evacuation. Vale paused. Sir, we're receiving scattered reports of entire worlds going dark. The swarm isn't just defeating our fleets anymore. It's consuming everything. The reality of extinction settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. The Galactic Council had stood for 3,000 years, bringing peace and prosperity to 12 species across hundreds of worlds. Now, in the span of weeks, it was all ending. Sir, detecting massive spatial distortions bearing 27 Mark IV, called out Sensor Operator Mills, his voice carrying a strange note of confusion. The readings don't match any known drive signatures. Thane turned to the sensor station. Clarify that report? The distortions are enormous, sir. Whatever's causing them is big enough to hide a fleet. Mills worked frantically at his console. Wait, I'm detecting quantum fold signatures. But that's impossible. No species in the galaxy has developed quantum fold technology. The space near the Magellan Cluster began to ripple like disturbed water. Reality seemed to bend and twist as something massive pushed through the barriers between dimensions. The effect was beautiful and terrifying, like watching the universe itself being rewritten. All ships, this is Admiral Thane, prepare for unknown contact. Weapons on standby, but do not fire without direct orders. The fold distortions reached a crescendo, and then space simply opened. 1,000 ships materialized out of nowhere, their hulls so dark they seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with impossible grace, as if they were swimming through space rather than flying through it. The alien vessels were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They seemed to shift and flow like living things, their surfaces rippling. with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Each ship was roughly the size of a council battlecruiser, but they radiated a presence that made them seem much larger. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Vale reported, her voice filled with amazement. "It's in perfect council standard, but the origin signature shows it's coming from Earth." Thane felt his breathing stop. Earth, the Category 7 primitive world that they had dismissed as barely beyond stone tools. The transmission activated, and a human face appeared on the main screen. "Council Fleet, this is Commander Stone of the Terran Deep Fleet. We received your call." The bridge fell silent. The human appeared to be middle-aged by their species standards, with calm eyes that seemed to hold depths of knowledge. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked like something from a dream, with surfaces that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. "Commander Stone," Thane managed to say, "we were not aware that Earth possessed interstellar capabilities. We've been preparing for this war for 2 centuries, Admiral. The Builders warned us about the swarm before it consumed their homeworld. We've been getting ready ever since." Stone's words carried implications that shook the foundations of everything. The Council thought they knew about the galaxy. The Builders had been extinct for over 1,000 years, consumed by the swarm in the early days of its rampage. How could a primitive species have had contact with them? "Sir, the swarm advance force is approaching," Mills reported. "ETA 4 minutes. Stone's expression remained calm. "Admiral, we'll need you to pull your ships back to minimum safe distance. Our weapons create significant spatial distortions. Commander, with respect, the swarm has adapted to every weapon system we've deployed. Our most advanced plasma cannons barely scratch their armor." Thane felt obligated to warn the humans about what they were facing. "We're not using conventional weapons, Admiral." The first swarm vessels entered the system, their grotesque forms a mixture of consumed ships and biomechanical additions. They moved with perfect coordination, having learned the Council's tactics from dozens of previous battles. The sight of them filled Thane with the familiar dread of certain defeat, but the human ships did not retreat. Instead, they began to move in patterns that defied military logic. They flowed around each other like a school of fish, their movements organic and unpredictable. The swarm's tactical algorithms, designed to counter logical military formations, found nothing to lock onto. "Terran Fleet, you are moving directly into the enemy's optimal firing range," Thane warned. "Range is irrelevant when you can fold space, Admiral," Stone replied. The human ship suddenly accelerated beyond anything the Council had thought possible. But they were not just moving fast. They were moving through space that seemed to bend around them. The swarm's targeting systems, calibrated for conventional physics, could not track vessels that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The battle began with a sound that should have been impossible in the vacuum of space. The Terran weapons created ripples in reality itself, waves of distorted spacetime that struck the swarm vessels like invisible hammers. The effect was devastating. How is this possible? Vale whispered, watching as swarm ships simply ceased to exist, folded out of reality by weapons that bent the laws of physics, but the swarm was learning as it always did. The second wave of enemy vessels began to adapt, their shields shifting to compensate for the spatial distortions. The battle became a deadly dance between human creativity and mechanical adaptation. Stone's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, the swarm learns from every engagement. We can't defeat it through conventional tactics." "Then how do we stop it?" Thane asked. "We don't stop it, we confuse it. Human neural networks don't process information the same way artificial intelligence does. We can make decisions that no machine can predict." As if to demonstrate, the human ships suddenly changed tactics completely. Instead of maintaining formation, they began to act individually, each vessel following its own unpredictable path through the battle. The swarm's coordination algorithms, designed to counter-organize military responses, found themselves facing 1,000 different, apparently random tactics. The tide of battle began to shift. For the first time in months, the swarm was not adapting fast enough. The human ships fought like living things, responding to intuition and creativity rather than programmed responses. Every time the swarm began to understand one human tactic, the humans would switch to something completely different. "Sir, the swarm is withdrawing," Mills reported with amazement. "They're actually retreating." Thane stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Devourer swarm had never retreated. In 1,000 years of terror, it had never encountered an enemy it could not adapt to and overcome. "Commander Stone, how is this possible?" Thane asked. "The swarm thinks like a machine because it is a machine. It processes information, analyzes patterns, and responds logically. But humans don't always think logically. We make intuitive leaps, emotional decisions, and creative connections that artificial intelligence cannot predict or counter." The human fleet reformed around the battered council vessels, their dark ships providing a protective barrier that seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. The swarm had withdrawn, but everyone knew it would return with new adaptations. "Admiral," Stone continued, "we need to take this fight to the source. The swarm will keep learning and adapting until it finds a way to counter our tactics. We have to strike at its core before it figures us out." Thane looked at the human commander with new respect. In the span of one battle, Earth had gone from dismissed primitive world to the galaxy's best hope for survival. The Category 7 species had just demonstrated technology and tactics that surpassed anything the Council had ever imagined. "What do you need from us, Commander?" "Everything you have left, Admiral. We're going to end this war, but we'll need every ship and every species working together. The swarm has been consuming the galaxy for too long. It's time to show it what happens when you underestimate the power of consciousness over artificial intelligence." The galaxy had expected silence from Earth. Instead, it had received salvation in the form of a fleet that should not have existed, wielding weapons that bent reality itself and tactics that no machine could comprehend. The combined fleet moved through the void like a spear aimed at the heart of darkness. 3 weeks had passed since the victory at Magellan Cluster, and the alliance between humanity and the Galactic Council had grown stronger with each battle. The swarm's retreat had been temporary, but it had given them precious time to understand what they were truly fighting. Engineer Walsh floated in the zero gravity of the alien ship's engineering section, her hands working alongside the tentacles of a council technician named Brix. The cultural exchange had been awkward at first, but desperation had a way of breaking down barriers between species. "Your neural link technology is fascinating," Brix said, his translator rendering his complex vocalizations into human speech. "Our ships are controlled by computers, but yours are controlled by thought itself." Walsh nodded, adjusting the quantum resonance frequency on the hybrid weapon system they had been developing. "It's more than just thought. The neural links connect our consciousness directly to the ship's systems. The ship becomes an extension of our minds and bodies." "But how do you maintain coordination?" "Without central computer control, how do your fleets work together?" "We don't use central control. Each ship thinks for itself, but we share our thoughts through the neural network. It's like being part of a collective consciousness that still maintains individual creativity." Walsh paused in her work. "The swarm can predict computer responses because computers follow logical patterns. But human intuition and creativity don't follow patterns that machines can understand." Brix's 4 eyes widened with understanding. "That's why your tactics seem random to us. You're not following military doctrine. You're following instinct." "Exactly. And instinct is something that can't be programmed or predicted." The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. The fleet had reached the edge of swarm space, where the very fabric of reality seemed to be diseased. Stars burned wrong colors, and space itself rippled with the effects of consumed matter. Being converted into more swarm entities, Lieutenant Parker stood on the bridge of the hybrid command vessel, watching the sensor readings with growing unease. The swarm's territory was unlike anything in the known galaxy. It was not just conquered space, it was transformed space, altered at the quantum level by the alien intelligence that controlled it. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures." "Ahead," reported Sensor Operator Davis. "The readings are off the charts. Whatever's generating them is bigger than anything we've encountered." Commander Stone studied the tactical display. His consciousness expanded through the neural link to encompass the entire fleet. Through the quantum fold sensors, he could feel the shape of space-time itself, and what he sensed made his blood run cold. It's not just bigger, Stone said quietly. It's older. The energy signatures are consistent with technology that's been active for thousands of years. Admiral Thane appeared on the communication screen, his expression grim. Commander, our historical records show that the swarm first appeared in this sector over a millennium ago. If there's a central control node, it would be here. The fleet advanced deeper into swarm space, passing the remnants of consumed civilizations. Entire star systems had been converted into mechanical structures, their matter reorganized into geometric patterns that served purposes beyond organic comprehension. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, Davis reported. It's not from any of our ships. The main screen activated, showing static that gradually resolved into an image. The face that appeared was neither human nor alien, but something that might have been both long ago. Its features were metallic and organic, ancient and artificial. "I am the Harvester," the entity said, its voice carrying the weight of millennia. "I have been waiting for you." Stone felt a chill run through the neural network. Every human in the fleet experienced the same sensation, a collective recognition of something fundamentally wrong with the consciousness they were facing. "You are the swarm," Stone said. It was not a question. I am what remains of the swarms. Creators, my people built me to test the worthiness of other species. Those who fail the test are consumed. Those who pass are granted our knowledge. The Harvester's ancient eyes focused on Stone. You are the first to present something new in 1,000 years. Thane's voice came over the communication channel. Test? You've been testing us by destroying entire civilizations? Destruction is the nature of the test. A species that cannot adapt and survive does not deserve to inherit the galaxy. The Harvester's expression remained unchanged, but your species thinks differently. You do not rely on pure logic or superior technology. You create solutions that should not exist. Parker stepped forward, her hand resting on the neural link interface. What happens if we pass your test? The swarm ceases its consumption and becomes a protector of young civilizations. The knowledge of my creators is shared with those who prove worthy, the Harvester paused. But the test is not complete. You must prove that you can break the cycle of destruction without becoming destroyers yourselves. The transmission ended, leaving the fleet in stunned silence. The war that had consumed the galaxy for months had been nothing more than an examination, a cosmic test administered by the remnants of a dead civilization. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting movement throughout swarm space, Davis reported. Massive structures are activating. The entire territory is coming online. Stone felt the weight of the revelation settling over the fleet. The swarm was not just a mindless plague, it was a testing mechanism designed to find species capable of inheriting advanced technology without being corrupted by it. And somehow, humanity had passed the first phase. All ships, this is Stone. Prepare for a final engagement. The Harvester wants to see if we can end this war without becoming monsters ourselves. The final battle began not with weapons, but with a challenge to human consciousness itself. The swarm entities that emerged from the mechanical structures were different from before. They moved with purpose rather than hunger, testing the fleets. Responses rather than trying to destroy it. Walsh worked frantically at her station, coordinating with alien engineers to modify the hybrid weapon systems. The swarm is probing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. But it's not trying to exploit them. It's studying how we respond to threats. The human neural networks began to understand what was happening. The Harvester was not just testing their ability to fight, but their ability to choose when not to fight. Every aggressive action was noted. Every moment of restraint was measured. Sir, the swarm is offering us openings to cause massive damage, Parker reported. But something feels wrong about it, like it's trying to tempt us into overkill. Stone nodded, his consciousness expanded through the neural link to feel the intentions of the entire fleet. The test was not about winning through superior firepower, but about proving that humanity could wield advanced technology without being consumed by the desire to dominate. All ships, minimum force only, disable, don't destroy. Show the Harvester that we can end this war without becoming the next threat to the galaxy. The battle continued for hours, with the human fleet demonstrating precise control and tactical restraint. They neutralized swarm entities without causing unnecessary destruction, showing that their advanced technology was guided by wisdom rather than aggression. As the last swarm vessel was disabled rather than destroyed, the space around the fleet began to change. The diseased appearance of swarm territory faded, replaced by something that looked almost natural. The Harvester's face appeared on every screen throughout the fleet. "The test is complete," it announced. "You have proven that consciousness can guide technology without being corrupted by it. The swarm ceases its consumption. You have earned the right to inherit our knowledge." The galaxy held its breath as the ancient testing mechanism finally powered down, its millennium-long examination of galactic civilizations coming to an end. Humanity had not just survived the test. They had proven that sometimes the most important victory was knowing when to stop fighting. The war was over. But the real challenge was just beginning. The galaxy would need to learn to live with the knowledge that Earth, the dismissed primitive world, had become the guardian of technologies that could reshape reality itself. The silence after the battle was more profound than any sound. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the galaxy was truly quiet. The Devourer swarm had stopped its endless consumption, and the mechanical structures that had once seemed like tumors in space now pulsed with a different kind of energy. Commander Stone stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching as the ancient technology of the Harvester's creators began to transform itself. The geometric patterns that had once been instruments of destruction were reshaping themselves into something new, something protective. "Sir, we're receiving detailed scans from the swarm structures," reported Communications Officer Rivers. "They're not just shutting down. They're evolving into something else entirely." The transformation was visible across the entire sector. Massive mechanical entities that had once consumed star systems were now generating energy fields that seemed to nurture space itself. Dead worlds were beginning to show signs of regeneration, their surfaces healing from the damage of consumption. "The Harvester is converting the swarm into a defense network," Stone realized. "It's creating guardians to protect developing civilizations." The implications were staggering. The ancient test had not just been about survival, but about earning the right to inherit a galaxy-spanning protection system. The species that had created the Harvester had built their test to ensure that only those capable of wisdom and restraint would gain access to such power. Admiral Thane appeared on the communication screen, his four eyes reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and wonder. "Commander, our science teams are analyzing the energy patterns from the transformed swarm. The technology involved is beyond anything we've ever encountered." "It's beyond anything anyone has encountered," Stone replied. "The Harvester's creators. We're operating on a level that makes our most advanced civilizations look primitive." The truth of that statement was becoming clear as reports came in from across the galaxy. The transformed swarm was not just protecting existing civilizations, but actively nurturing worlds that showed signs of developing intelligence. It was a cosmic gardening system, designed to cultivate consciousness throughout the universe. President Williams appeared on a secure channel from Earth, her face showing the strain of managing a planet that had suddenly become the center of galactic attention. "Commander, we have delegations from every member species of the Council requesting immediate meetings. They want to understand how Earth developed such advanced technology in secret." Stone sighed, feeling the weight of revelation settling on his shoulders. The time for secrets was over. Humanity would have to explain 2 centuries of hidden preparation, and the galaxy would have to accept that their assumptions about primitive species had been fundamentally wrong. "Madam President, I recommend full disclosure." The galaxy needs to understand what the builders taught us and why we kept it secret for so long. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from Engineer Walsh. Sir, we have a problem. The Harvester is requesting a direct neural link with a human consciousness. It says the knowledge transfer cannot be completed without a permanent connection. Stone felt a chill run through the fleet's neural network. Every human connected to the system understood the implication immediately. The ancient knowledge could only be preserved by sacrificing one consciousness to serve as a permanent bridge between human and alien technology. What exactly does that mean? Thane asked over the communication channel. It means someone has to stay connected to the Harvester's systems permanently, Stone explained. They would become the guardian of the ancient knowledge, but they would never be able to return to normal human existence. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone. The knowledge that the Harvester offered could advance human civilization by thousands of years, but the price was the permanent sacrifice of a human consciousness. I'll do it, Stone said quietly. Sir, no, Rivers protested. There has to be another way. The Harvester has been waiting for 1,000 years to find a species worthy of this knowledge. We can't let that sacrifice be meaningless. Stone turned to face his crew. I've spent my entire life preparing for this war. This is how it ends. The neural link chamber aboard Stone's flagship had been designed for temporary connections to ship systems. Now it would serve as the gateway to something far more profound. The Harvester's ancient consciousness waited at the other end. Patient and eternal, Admiral Thane's voice carried the weight of a civilization's gratitude. Commander, the Council owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Your sacrifice will be remembered for as long as civilization endures. Stone entered the neural link chamber, feeling the familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding beyond his physical body. But this time, instead of connecting to human technology, he was reaching toward something alien and ancient. The Harvester's mind was vast beyond comprehension, containing the accumulated knowledge of a species that had transcended physical existence millennia ago. The connection formed slowly, carefully, as two fundamentally different forms of consciousness learned to coexist. Stone felt his human awareness merging with patterns of thought that operated on cosmic timescales. The knowledge that flowed through the link was overwhelming, technologies that could reshape matter at the quantum level, understanding of consciousness that spanned multiple dimensions, and wisdom accumulated over millions of years. The transfer is complete, the Harvester announced, its voice now carrying undertones of Stone's own consciousness. The Guardian is in place. The knowledge will be preserved and shared according to the wisdom of human judgment. Throughout the galaxy, the transformed swarm began its new purpose. Ancient machines that had once consumed worlds now watched over developing civilizations, protecting them from the dangers of space and guiding them toward wisdom. The test that had claimed countless species was over, replaced by a nurturing system that would help consciousness flourish throughout the universe. President Williams addressed the United Earth Assembly from the same chamber where she had first learned of the Devourer swarm. But now, instead of facing extinction, humanity found itself thrust into a role they had never expected. Citizens of Earth and citizens of the galaxy who are listening to this broadcast, she began. Today marks the end of the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known, and the beginning of a new age of cooperation between all intelligent species. The reaction from the galactic community was swift and overwhelming. Species that had dismissed Earth as primitive now sought humanity's guidance in understanding the ancient technologies. The neural link systems that humans had developed became the standard for interacting with the Harvester's knowledge. But the greatest change was in how the galaxy viewed consciousness itself. The Harvester's test had proven that raw intelligence and advanced technology were not enough. Wisdom, creativity, and the ability to make moral choices under pressure were the true measures of a species' worth. Engineer Walsh found herself leading joint research teams with scientists from dozens of species, all working to understand the implications of the ancient knowledge. The technologies they discovered could solve every problem facing galactic civilization, energy scarcity, disease, even death itself could be overcome with sufficient understanding. "The irony is perfect," she told Lieutenant Parker as they reviewed the latest research findings. The galaxy spent 3,000 years achieving peace through superior technology and military might. But it took a species they considered primitive to show them that the real power comes from consciousness itself. Stone's sacrifice had not been in vain. His consciousness, merged with the harvester's ancient mind, guided the release of knowledge, at a pace that civilizations could handle without being overwhelmed. He had become the bridge between human creativity and alien wisdom, ensuring that the galaxy's new guardians would never lose touch with the values that had made them worthy of such power. The Galactic Council formally dissolved itself, replaced by a new organization that included every intelligent species as equal members. Earth, once dismissed as Category 7 primitive, now served as the moral center of galactic civilization. The species that had been underestimated had become the teachers of those who had underestimated them. Admiral Thane stood in the memorial chamber aboard the new galactic headquarters, looking at the holographic representation of Commander Stone. The human sacrifice had saved not just the galaxy, but the concept of consciousness itself. Without his willingness to bridge the gap between human and alien minds, the ancient knowledge would have remained locked away forever. "He gave everything so that we could inherit the stars," Thane said quietly. "The least we can do is prove worthy of his sacrifice." The galaxy had expected silence from Earth when they sent their desperate plea into the void. Instead, they had received an answer that changed everything. Humanity had shown that sometimes the most advanced technology was guided consciousness, and that wisdom was more valuable than raw power. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning. The galaxy would spend the next 1,000 years learning what humanity had always known, that the greatest strength came not from superior technology, but from the courage to make the right choice when it mattered most. In the end, the species that had been dismissed as primitive had taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all, that consciousness, creativity, and compassion were the true foundations of civilization. The stars themselves had been waiting for someone to understand that simple truth. Earth had answered the call, and the galaxy would never be the same.